hope you guys had a beautiful weekend. I had the best weekend. So we took Bennett to this thing called ice at a hotel in Orlando where they like make ice sculptures, statues, slides, all the things. For us Florida people, it's very impressive. Okay, hold on. Let me see what is going on here. Yay, Alyssa's here. Okay, so you can see it. I'm very happy about that. I cannot see it. If y'all are here and you can see me, tell me. I just cannot seem to find it in the group. I gotta be able to find it to see your comments. I don't know what's going on. That's so odd. Okay, I hate like wasting our time on this though. All right, let me see if I pull it up here. Hi, Lauren. Yay, I'm excited. You're excited. Am I live in the group? Okay, Madeline says yes. Okay, amazing. Apparently I blocked myself or something. All right, we'll just forget that and get into it. Maybe I'll pull it up on my phone in a second. It's just hard to see comments. So anyway, let's do this. We are going to talk about what it means to show up for your business without being its only fuel. I feel like this is such an important topic because I feel like the way people talk about this in our space is just not nuanced enough. For the fact that like we are personal brands and we like want balance. And I think like it gets so diluted when we're kind of talking about it like you should be a coach who doesn't have to coach at all, or you should be a whatever support person, a service provider that doesn't have to serve. Like, of course we do. Like, that does not mean you built the wrong business model. It just means there are other ways to do these things and think about these things. So, hey, Brittany. Thank you guys for being here. Oh, and before I forget, obviously we always do a giveaway in December. I always do like money the whole time because who doesn't want that in December? So this time, $100 giveaway for anyone that comments or says hi, just as a thank you for being here. Okay, I am gonna try this one more time because I really do want to be able to see y'all's comments a little bit better. And then we're gonna get into it. And obviously if you have thoughts or questions, please feel free to share them with me. And that is what makes these so fun, is when we can interact with one another. Okay, what in the world, y'all, is going on? Let me pull it up on my phone and see if that makes it better. Am I? Let's see. Oh, hold on. Am I like not live in the group? Is that what's happening? Let me know your thoughts. If you guys can see that. Excited to hear about this. I'm juggling new mom life and a full-time job. Looking forward to this. Thank you, Ray. Okay, amazing. I don't know what's going on here, but I will just stop and stop worrying about it and we'll get into it. Okay, so basically, I feel like there's not enough nuance on this topic. We're all personal brands. We're all service providers. Like, of course, our business is going to take something from us, take energy from us, require us to show up in certain ways. If you are trying to be a coach and service provider and build a business that does not require anything from you, it is going to be confusing as can be. Oh, good. Truly, it is going to be so confusing. So let's not do that to ourselves. Let's actually make sure that we are able to do this in a way that really serves us, that really feels good, but that also acknowledges the fact that like we are service providers, we are business owners, we are personal brands. Like there are things that that requires from us, right? So from that, I think the first piece of the conversation is, have you acknowledged that? Like, can we acknowledge that balance is required? Because I think that again, it's just so the messaging in our space sometimes, but I feel like it's so very often one of those things where, oh, hold on, let's see if I can do this. Actually, make sure that I found it. We are able to do less. Okay. Really sometimes. Let me feel like it's so very often one of mute myself here. Okay, amazing. Can y'all still hear me if I do that? Cool. Okay, I feel so much better. We're on track now. Okay, so I feel like it's one of those things that we have to acknowledge because the online space will tell us like if you're having to show up in your business, you're doing it wrong, but also you should be showing up in your business. And if you're showing up too much, you're doing it wrong. And it's like this whole thing that I think gets layered in and gets very fucking stressful, honestly, because we feel like we're doing something wrong no matter what we're doing, you know? Like if I'm showing up too much, I somehow should be figuring out how to show up less. But if I show up less, I somehow should be figuring out how to show up more without showing up. Like, you get me. It gets very wild, very confusing. So that's kind of what I want to like take the noise off of today. Like, if you're a service provider, a coach, whatever, you're going to have to do your job. Call it what it is. If you are marketing online right now, people want you. They don't want, just some random output from ChatGPT with a branded photo of you. Like, that is not what's working. That is not what people want. That is not what's landing. Let's be real. But you have to figure out how to provide those things without it meaning you have to be on 24/7, or it all has to take so much from you, or it has to be so entirely dependent on your energy moment to moment, right? So I feel like that's really important. The first piece of that is required, in my opinion, obviously this is not my take, right? Is that you have to have a plan for that. You have to know what you want and you have to know how to plan ahead. I feel like so often when people feel frustrated by this, it's because there is no plan and they're not making any effort to create one or to plan ahead. So, like, yes, if you have to put out whatever, you don't have to, but like, let's just say this as an example. Say you want to put out 4 reels and 2 carousels a week. If you don't have a plan for that, it's going to be very hard to get support on that. That makes it not energy dependent. It's going to be very hard to feel ease around that. Hey, Lace, ease around that if you cannot be planful and or get support. And so I feel like this is where the rub comes in for a lot of people is they're like, I want it to not depend on my energy, but I don't want to have to do the work of planning ahead or systematizing or creating guidelines or structure. And then you're just screwed. Like, it feels really, really tough. It feels like, why is it all on me? But I'm not making enough of a plan or system so that it can be somewhat dependent on everyone else. Right. And I feel like that's really important to say. Hey, Lauren, love this combo on your recent podcast episode too. Yes, we have a similar podcast episode to this because I feel like it is so important. And I want to talk about it here too, because I just feel like this is a question so many people are asking. Like, they're like, I love the work I do. I want to build this business and I don't want to have to give it everything I got. Well, that's fucking fair, you know? Hey, Lisa, good to see you. So anyway, having this conversation a lot, I also feel like it's so relevant to this time of year too, as you plan for next year. But I think we get stuck in that trap, right? Of like, I want it to feel easy. I want it to feel stress-free. I don't want to have all this rigidness of like, I'm supposed to post 4 reels and 2 carousels or whatever, right? But ultimately, in my opinion, having some structure, benchmark, system is the singular thing that makes your business not depend on your energy alone, because it is the structure that supports your energy, right? Now, what I personally do in my business, just to give you like a really tangible example of this, is on our like to-dos or planning board in Asana, I have 5 posts a week. So I have 4 reels and a carousel. I can delete those. I can move them. I can be like, fuck it, delete. I'm not posting anything this Friday. And it's fine. Nothing breaks, nothing goes wrong, right? But if I didn't have those, would I get 4 reels and a carousel out most weeks? No, I wouldn't. But because I have those, I can plan in advance and I can get support around it. So, for example, if I know I'm posting a carousel, I need to get that to my team several days in advance so that they can help me with the graphics and getting it ready and posting it for me. It's kind of as simple as that. Like, I know that's coming. I have plenty of time to do that. I've actually done most of them for December already, right? So those are done. Like, those are off my plate. I don't have to be worried about my energy on that particular Wednesday or whatever the fuck, or my time to get it out. But when I was feeling really energized around it, I wrote a bunch of shit. I put it somewhere. we have a whole system where our team takes that and does something with it. And like this to me is the difference. Is like you kind of have to know what you're shooting for, and you kind of have to have a system that backs that up. They don't have to be rigid. They don't have to be so structured that you can never move anything, but they do need to live in a way that allows you to work and operate when you are feeling most excited or energetic about something, and put it into a system that then supports that. I think what a lot of people get into with stuff like this, like we'll just use content as an example, is when they're excited, they're like posting twice or three times a day. And then when they're in an energetic lull, nothing's going out, versus when they were excited, if they were creating all that, say they were creating multiple things a day and they had a place to put it and put it into a system, then it could go out when they are not most like, energetically buoyant or whatever. Slash, this also gives you stuff that you can repurpose when you're not feeling it too. Like say I do know I want 3 reels and a carousel going out every week and I'm having a really hard month. Can I just grab old carousels and be like, cool, throw this one in here, throw this one in here, throw this one in here? Yes, right? Like this is how you can operate on like fun and energy and excitement, and also have stuff that supports you in the meantime. And I think like that is where like even all the talk of like feminine business or like, are you operating in your masculine? Like, I think that's a really important conversation. But the truth is, your business needs both, right? Like, your business needs you to be able to be in your flow and in your excitement. And it needs real structures that support that, so that your flow and energy aren't the only fuel running your team or your business or your lead gen, really, right? Lacey said, I love that piece on when lit up and creating a bunch. Sometimes I dread creating a bunch of content ahead of time, but I forget I do have excitement creation times. Yeah, I'm totally the same. Like I'll usually like get in a flow and I can like knock a bunch out. But if I like was just doing one a day every day, that would be a little bit harder for me. Occasionally I've done it, but it's not my favorite. Elisa says, I totally hear you on the structure. However, my problem is that it feels so hard to get the structure up and running with the very little time I have available. Yeah, which like is a great point. And honestly, I think it leads to the next point, which is like, sometimes we have to sacrifice to get this system and structure set up. Meaning like, I just had this conversation with a client not all that long ago. Like you might have to repurpose old content for 2 weeks and like take the hit, so to speak, on that. If it's not going to be like the most engaged pieces of content you've ever put out, to spend those 2 weeks instead setting up some systems and structure. Or you might have to be like, whatever, I'm going dark for a week. Everyone will live, nothing will crumble. And I'm going to spend that time really perfecting like what is our process here and figuring that out. I feel like so often when we're like in that mode of I don't even have time to slow down and make a process, what we're really telling ourselves is like, if even one of these things stops, something will break in my business. And 9 times out of 10, that's not true at all. It can feel that way, especially when you're someone who's been really consistent for a long time and really on it. But what you have to remember is your consistency is what is buying you the opportunity to repurpose content for 2 weeks or go dark for 3 weeks or whatever, right? That's what's buying you that opportunity. And so if you've been really consistently like showing up and getting stuff out and you're like, I don't have a system to support that, you need to buy yourself that time back and go, okay, whatever happens for 2 weeks, I'm going to put that time to building this up and or hire someone to do that. Obviously, I feel like I'm always running behind. Totally. And sometimes it's just a mindset thing more than it is like a strategy thing, right? At this point in a lit up life, I feel like I could literally just disappear for a month and it probably wouldn't matter. I don't want to. Let's not create that scenario. But like, I have enough built up that if I was like, I'm going to take a month off, I don't want to put any energy into content for the next month, it like I would just start up again and it would probably be totally fine. At least I imagine you're there too. I'm not suggesting you take a month off, but that's not my tooth. I sure do. I am saying, gone, I think. I am saying that sometimes we have to give ourselves that benefit of being like, it would be okay if, like I was talking to one of my clients about this with her podcast, like, it was like, it would be okay if you repurposed like best of content for the next 4 weeks and just called it a day and bought yourself back, whatever that is, an hour and a half of time every week and used it on this thing instead. And I think sometimes we forget like that is the point of consistency, is building it up enough so that we can spend the time to build something that we can leverage later on. Yeah, exactly. I did that during maternity leave. I literally completely left the face of the earth for almost 4 months, right? We certainly repurposed content and stuff, but like I did nothing in that time. I didn't see clients. I didn't create a single bit. Actually, I think I did like one Q&A on my Instagram stories, but like truly that was it. And it was fine. Was it uncomfortable? I suppose a little bit, but I think I was so distracted with being a new mom that I was like, that was the least of my worries. But like, it was obviously somewhat uncomfortable to be like, wow, I've shown up consistently every day for like this long and now I'm just out. But I just knew my business could like figure that out. And I actually think even now with the way like the algorithm and content is, like, I even think more so, right? Because it's so much more based on like the quality, I think, than the quantity. So I feel like that's a really important thing as an example, right? Even with services, I feel like there's a whole conversation to be had here of like, do you have a setup for this? Like, do you have a way where you're like, okay, if I was taking X time off, do we know what that process would be? Right? Like, if I was going to take whatever, 3 weeks off, do we know, like, oh, okay, well, we could add X sessions onto the end of our client packages and we could extend this in this way and we could or like, if I was like an OBM and a service provider, okay, I want to take 2 weeks off, or 3 weeks off, do I have a VA that I know is trained up enough to like step in and do this? Like, almost all of this idea of like the business doesn't just depend on your energy, depends on delegation and systems and structure, right? And so if you're constantly resisting systems and structure, your business is always going to be focused on your energy. It's almost that simple. Because if it's not that, it has to be something else. It's not like there's this business that runs with no systems, no structure, no energy, no personality, no personal brand. Like, right? That's not it. And so you really kind of come to this crossroads where you have to decide, like, okay, if I have no interest in systems and structures in my business, then I have to be okay with the business ebbing and flowing based on my energy. That can be okay too, if you're okay with that, right? You might be like, that is just what feels best to me. That's how I want to run my business. By all means, like, truly do what feels best to you. Like, you get to pick what your trade-offs are. Hey, Fran, thank you. But if that trade-off doesn't feel good to you, then the other trade-off might be, I have to take time to set up the systems. I have to spend money on delegation, right? But this idea that like we can be personal brands that either don't ebb and flow based on our energy and don't have team structure and systems, like, it just doesn't work together. It really doesn't. And I feel like all of the stuff that tries to position it saying it does, honestly, this is my true thought, is either an absolute lie, or, and I really get this, um, it just comes more easily for them. Like, I would say in my business, I am fortunate in that a lot of things come quite easily to me. I don't find content creation very hard. I find that pretty easy. Like, I'm not someone who's like, oh my gosh, like, like to write a carousel takes me so much time and so much energy, and it takes and it takes and it takes from me. I'm like, I could probably bang that out in like 20 minutes, if that. I feel pretty lit up by it. It's simple. But I'm not going to pretend that that's like, one, the case for everyone, and two, that I still want my business to operate solely on that, right? Just because it's simple and it's easy and I can do it quickly and all of those kind of things, it doesn't mean that actually serves me long term. Because ultimately I'm still saying, oh, it's because I got it, no worries. Or I'm framing it to everyone of like, it's so easy, but what I really mean is like, it's easy for me when I feel good, lit up, not sleep deprived, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like, it's just a different thing. Christina said, but Lacey, systems aren't fun. Agree, very needed though. Yeah, they're really not that fun, especially to build. I think the hardest thing about building systems is that it is very much like a slow down to speed up type of situation, where I mean, if you guys have listened to the podcast, you know, this season, that is like almost the entire context of the podcast this season is Kristen wants to speed up and she has to slow down in order to do that because she was working at her max capacity, right? And unless she pulls back, slows down, systematizes, she's going to burn out, right? Like she knew that. Like she knows that that's where she's headed straight for is burnout because we can only operate off our own fuel so much. And you know, obviously everyone has a different amount. Some of us have like way more than others, and that's okay too, but there's always a tipping point. There's always a top level that we can give and we can contribute. And you have to be very aware of that in your business. Like I really try to pay attention to that. I really try to like recently I kind of had to do a reset on that in my own business of like, hey, I still feel like I'm doing a little too much in these areas and I'm going to step back and not. Because if you get too close to your upper edge enough times, the absolute like guarantee I have for you is that you're going to burn out or you're going to think your business isn't worth it. If you're able to go, okay, I have some flexibility here. If I got sick, the world wouldn't fall apart. If I wanted to take time for this trip, I could figure that out. Now, sometimes you may go, I don't want to do that trip enough that it's worth the trade-off. Fair. Don't fucking do it. I've made that decision in my business before too. But if you want it, like I want you to know that you could say yes to it. And again, delegation, systems and structures, and or a willingness to not care if it ebbs and flows then, right? You know, just is so very clearly one of those two paths. Lauren said if content creation tends to take more from you for now, how do you suggest creating a discipline and devotion to it? Like more energy, I guess is what you're saying. Yeah. So like if it's taking a ton of energy for you, I would really try to pay attention to why and like what that looks like. Meaning like, is it writing that takes a ton of energy from you? Okay. Can you do more talking heads, right? Or is it the opposite? Is it like, I love being on video, but I find it really hard to like create that hook for a reel or whatever. Great. Can you start with like the podcast or the talking head and then have like AI help you with hooks or something like that? Like there's almost always a piece where it's like that, if I could just do that all the time, it would be easy, right? For me, it's typically more writing. So like if I could just like teleport myself back to 2019 when we just put up like a branded picture of us and a caption, that was like by far what was easiest for me. He's there. And so now I'm like, okay, well, that's what's easiest for me. Can I start there? A lot of times, like, okay, let me look on reels, let me get inspired by something, let me write the hook and the caption, and then I'll figure out like how to pair that with a B-roll or video or whatever. So like build it around what feels easiest for you, what already flows for you, and then work everything else out from there. If you always try to start with the hardest things, it's going to feel hard and it's going to take and take and take. Another example of this is like, I really am a generator. I do better like in response to things. So for example, I love a live stream like this. I love the way we do the podcast. If I had to do the solo podcast every week, I would fucking hate that. I genuinely find it quite challenging to do the solo podcast. It is not my favorite piece of my business. I like them like in terms of like, I like that being a contribution to the podcast, but in terms of actually doing it, I don't like that. And so just noting that, like, I would never create a solo podcast because I just wouldn't. Like, it's not like where I'm best suited or what fills me up. So thinking about it like that is really helpful too. Yeah, you're a generator too. So you, like, for me, I just always try to find stuff to be in response to. So like if I scroll my Reels tab and I'm like, oh, I love that. That's a great idea. I should do something like that I'm inspired by, or, oh, this person asked a question, I can easily go answer that, et cetera, et cetera. So like that might be a great way to think about it, but definitely start with like whatever piece feels most in flow for you and try to build around that. And again, I think this is such a testament to it can be about your fuel. meaning, let's see what's happening here. Okay. Um, my loom was like flashing at me. It can be about your fuel, meaning like if you can find the thing that lights you up and then you can put strategy around that, it's so much easier. Like I'm really good at like being like, okay, I love to write a carousel and then hand it off to my team and they can like put it in a thing. I can approve it. It can get posted. I really like writing a hook or a caption. Okay, I can do that. And then I can just like randomly capture a bunch of B-roll and like match them up and not worry too much if they fit. Like just stuff like that. Like I'm willing to make certain trade-offs. Like, you know, this B-roll video of me walking with Bennett doesn't totally relate to the exact point I'm making in this, but like, fuck it, who cares? Like I'm fine with that trade-off because it's what's easiest for me. So anyway, I don't know if that helps, but I would definitely think about like yourself. Like, I think we're so used to stealing everyone else's system. And I think if you go, where am I excited? What feels good to me is when it gets easier. Lacey said, I'm noticing I'm getting burnt out with writing. So trying to think about ways I can do more video in 2025. Perfect example, right? Like it's, the exact opposite. Like, okay, I love video. I could record a ton of videos all day. Let me just do that instead. You can pull a transcript from that and it can become written, etc. Right? Fran said for the solo girlies, what would you recommend when you like the creation, but the ADHD makes it hard for you to get it done? I would definitely say that's where team support is huge. Like if you're like that quick start, love to create, you need somebody else helping you complete that process. And that's where it's like the business can run off support and not the energy of someone else. I know you're saying for the solo girlies, so that kind of doesn't always help that. But what I will tell you, and I know I was literally just having this conversation with one of my clients, like we are often willing to invest so much in our business in terms of like coaching and things like that. But sometimes we forget how inexpensive some level of additional like EA or VA support can be that can take us a really, really long way. So like this is just an example, but even if you hired someone for 2 hours a week at $40 an hour, 45, let's go. 2 hours a week at $45 an hour. You're paying like less than $100 a week for them to help you complete all these ideas that you have. That's worth it every fucking time. And that's the point of like the systems. And I think again, sometimes we miss how valuable that can truly be for us. And we think we're like missing some other thing. Like I was talking to one of my clients about this in a totally different realm, but we were talking about it in terms of home support. And she was saying like she's feeling like really overwhelmed with like all of this stuff on her list and like all that she wants to do like for her child and her home. And I was like, why can't we get home support and pay X amount for someone to come in for 3 hours a week or something? And she was like, duh. Like I've never let myself think that. I would never consider that. It feels like hiring like in-home support would be like so far off in the future. But meanwhile, she's paying me for coaching. And that doesn't feel like too much. Again, obviously, I'm not saying don't pay for support, but I am saying like sometimes you have to think about that balance. So, Fran, I'm not saying you have to by any means, but I would really try to think about like what else might be supportive for you. Or even, for example, like, do you want to join a membership that literally gives you like one of my clients has like a Reels membership and she literally is like, record this B-roll, do a hook like this, da, 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 and like maybe that helps you complete it because it's really, really structured. I don't know, but I would definitely think about like what else helps you with that in an inexpensive way. Because I think it is sort of like unfair to ourselves sometimes when we're like, hey, I know like bringing this full circle is not easy for me. It's not like my best skill set, but I'm still trying to make myself feel like I have to do it. Versus getting the support or structure, I think is really relevant too. So I would definitely be looking at that. Yeah, Tracy said I used to invest in a membership like that for Reels and it was so much easier. So I think that's something to think about too, right? Like we really can have just that, like, okay, someone else is giving me the structure. Fran said, I like that idea. I know of thousands of VAs and didn't think about Fran, the coach, having one. Yes, right? I think that's so true. Yep. It was fun. Dare I even say, Tracy, same. I like never thought I would like reels, and now I find them to be so fun. And I think it's especially fun when it's like you, again, I'm a generator. So when I have something to respond to and go off of, I'm like, this can be really fun. I don't know if you are too, but like that part really helped me. Um, but yeah, Fran, the coach, is allowed to have support. And like, even that might be a mindset shift. I think sometimes with all of this, like, it has to be my energy, also comes this like hyper independence piece in ourselves where it's like, I have to do it all, or I'm the one that does it best. I'm not saying that you're saying that, Fran. I just think it's really normal. But yeah, Tracy said projector. So she likes low lift. Yes, I think that's perfect. It fits us all in different ways. But like, I know I can have this like hyper independent streak sometimes where I'm like, but no one will do it the way I'll do it or whatever. And I let that go years ago because it just doesn't matter. I'm not saying it never comes up for me, but I just can see how it's not important in my business. Like, I might do this slightly different in this way, but it would never ever impact the results of my business enough that it would be worth me doing everything in my business on my own. Like, that is truly the least helpful thing I could possibly do in my business. If I was doing it all on my own, I would have about half the clients I have and be making about half the money for what? So that I could say, like, I liked how that was formatted better. You know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't make any fucking sense when you really think about it like that. So if you want it to be less based on your energy, you have to figure where the important pieces are in terms of putting your energy. I don't want anyone else coaching my clients, control freak or otherwise. That's where I'm at with that. So, like, I need to have energy there. I am a personal brand. I need to be on video. I need to put myself into the content, right? So that's that. Literally everything else doesn't matter. Someone else can help me with, someone else can help me do. And so that's like, I know where I need to put my energy. So if we're saying like, okay, you're a personal brand, it's going to require some of your energy. Yep, on these two fronts. And the rest, I really have to keep pulling off my plate. And if it keeps getting put back on my plate, I have to be like, what else needs to shift? What else needs to change? Because I need less of this, right? And I think that's just a really helpful way to think about how you can honor the fact that I'm going to grab that link, how you can honor the fact that, like, yes, you're a person who's built a business that does require some of you, but it doesn't have to require all of you. Tracy said membership. Okay, I'm going to share it, Tracy. Thank you. Lauren's in the real membership and working on the consistency piece. Amazing. And honestly, Lauren, like, even that, like, you know, like, you can give yourself permission. Like, so for me, I don't want to bang out 7 reels a week right now. I just don't. I don't even want to do 5. I'm like 3 to 4, and like that is still consistency. So also permission there again on like, where does it matter to put your energy? I would rather do 3 a week that I feel really great about, than do whatever, like 5 that I feel mediocre about. So that's something to think about too. Like, are you defining consistency in a way that supports you and that serves you and all of that kind of stuff too? Yeah, good. Let me think of what else I wanted to say around this. Like, I feel like this is implicit in what I'm saying, but let's talk about it for a second. But I do feel like planning ahead is also required. I feel like so many of us, like, I've been on both ends of the spectrum, so I'll just share from this angle. I feel like I used to plan so far ahead in terms of my content and my business stuff. Like, I would have content done for, well into the next month, or I would pre-record a lot of my stories. So I would even have stories pre-recorded for a while, potentially 2 months in advance. And that was really helpful in a sense. But I also was missing like the in the moment kind of interaction, or the being able to talk about what was like up for me that week or whatever. And so now I typically plan out 1 to 2 weeks in advance. And I mostly do my stories in real time now, where I used to do them like in a big chunk before. But I could not do everything in real time. So what I've kind of come around to is like, so right now, like our live streams are planned for January. I already know what those are going to be, probably through even maybe the beginning of Feb. Great. Those aren't my most like real-time things. I know what my content is for the rest of this week. Okay, so my content is more so, I have no idea what my stories are for this week. Like, but it's helpful because it's like, it's not being so all or nothing, where it's like every piece of content has to be planned out for months to be whatever, to not depend on me. That's not true. Every single piece of content has to be planned out or has to not be planned out so I can be in the moment and like in real time with my audience. Also not true. So just wanting to like give that permission also, that like you can have a plan and have different levels of how planned it is. You can have different pieces of your business that feel more present and in real time and less so. But you'll also see that's where I vary. It's just the truth. Like, because my stories aren't the thing I have planned out anymore, I'm not as consistent with them as I used to be. I am a very consistent human, but it's not like I used to be like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, no matter what, there would be a client lesson come hell or high water, right? Now I'm like, oh, mostly, you know, I probably do that most weeks. I can think of a week recently where I did literally none, but I do it on the thing that I know is not going to make the biggest difference for me in what my goals are at that moment. I'm not saying that should be the same for you. Maybe your goals totally align to doing stories way more, but like you have to know where you can give and take on your energy too. So stories really do require my energy. I am less worried about that. I'm fine ebbing and flowing in that area, where something like us getting out consistent emails or us getting these live streams out, that feels like it matters more to me in a different way. And so I have a system that supports that. If I was like, stories are the most important thing in my business now, I want to be way more consistent on that, I would just create a better plan. It's kind of that simple, right? In fact, that is one thing I'm working on for next year. Is I was having a conversation with my team recently about like, let's plan for stories a little bit better. Like it's really just that. It's like, do you want to ebb and flow? Do you want it to be based on your energy? Do you care? If not, do you want to create a system? And ultimately, I really feel like that's the gift we have to give ourselves. And we have to figure out how to make that system work for us. So kind of back to Fran's point, like it might be like, okay, I am not great at the completion of things. I need a system that fully supports that to make this work for me. How can I do that? Or I'm not great at starting things. I need something to get me started and then I can be responsive to that. How can we set that up? Like, it doesn't matter what it is, but it matters how you're setting it up. If you're planning in advance, if you're willing to experience the trade-offs either way of I plan in advance and I have to deal with making a plan, or, I don't want to and I'm okay for that to change. So I just wanted to share that because I feel like it doesn't have to be all one way or the other. It's not like you're the most planned out human in the world or you're not and you're fucked. Like you can really play the middle ground here if that's what feels best for you. But ultimately, like if you don't want your business to be solely based on your energy, it has to have something else that's doing that. I always say, like, you don't have to work in your business all the time, but like your business does have to work and run all the time. So that means you need another system or an automation or a person or whatever. Like I think the fallacy that we should somehow be building businesses that don't require any of those things is what's keeping so many people in our space stuck. Is the idea that like the ultimate business doesn't require any of that bullshit. Like, no, the ultimate business requires all of that if you want to be able to pull back and step back. Even on that point of like us being able to sell Dateable, like the reason we were able to sell Dateable is because it was based on structures and systems and setup that did not require Jen and I's energy 24/7. That's why we were able to build and scale it. And that's also why we were able to sell it. Um, Lauren said, love the idea of creating a system so I'm not left to the ebb and flow of my own energy. Right. And then ultimately the ebb and flow of the results related to that. And I think that's where so many people in our space get frustrated too, is they're like, why aren't my results more consistent? Is your system is the structure behind that really consistent? If it is, your results are 10 times more likely to be consistent. If it's not, it makes sense, like as an example with stories, like my views are kind of up and down. Does that make sense? Yes, because I'm up and down with it. Like it's just easy to neutralize it like that. Whereas like my reels, for example, get really good traction most of the time because I'm way more consistent with that. And you get to pick where you put your energy at any given point. Like your energy does not have to be in every single area of your business all at the same time. You just have to figure out what you want most from the business and focus on that. Like ultimately, a Live Life makes money because our clients make money. The absolute vast majority of my energy is always going to go to clients. I'm clear on that. The rest is like what's left over. Doesn't mean I don't have a system, doesn't mean I'm not structured or all of that, but like ultimately I know where it makes sense to put my energy and I'm going to align my actions to that. Thanks, Lauren. Tracy said, same. I have one for my podcast this year. I'm focusing my Tuesdays as a non-negotiable. I love that. Yes, yes. So good. So, I mean, that's really it. That's kind of all I had. I hope that helps. And I hope it's just like permission giving. I think we get so stressed out when we feel like we're missing some magic thing that would absolve us of all of this. And ultimately, I think what it keeps coming back to over and over again is like the magic thing is typically like the unsexy stuff. It's slowing down to create a system. It's trusting someone other than yourself. It's being willing to get yourself support that you maybe feel like you shouldn't need. It's creating a system, even if you don't like systems, etc. So I know that's not the most fun, but trust me, it's fun when it starts and it flows and it's working and you're like, oh, this is how I could step back and be okay. That's what's going to make 2025 good, whether it's like scaling or growing or whatever. Like so many reasons that we block ourselves from scaling and growing is because we think about how much it's going to energetically take from us. When we think about it like this, and we're like, oh, I can grow more because my systems will support that, is so much easier. So I hope that helps. Thank you, Lacey. Thank you, Lauren. I hope you guys have a beautiful week. If y'all have questions on this, let me know. And if not, I will see you next week. Bye, guys.